Good afternoon to all the members of the Upcycled Cloth Collective. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And I'm very, very excited because this is the very first of our Zoom interviews with our members who are making products using upcycled textiles that they sell. And today I feel very lucky to be talking to Ellie Lahey. Good afternoon, Ellie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
So, please will you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your journey with textiles up to now?
Yes, I started sewing when I was young. My grandmother taught me, and then in about, I don't know, 2008, I started kind of really getting more interested into it. And then in 2009, I opened my first mixture of vintage clothes and upcycled vintage clothes and handmade originals.
So you've actually been at it for quite a while.
Yes.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Why did you decide to start making upcycled textile products to sell?
I think it came kind of naturally. Like I remember when my grandmother taught me how to sew. We never went to the fabric store. Like I can't ever recall going to the fabric store. We just made things with stuff that we had. So it just kind of was like what I did when I started making things for myself too. It just felt like the right thing to do.
Okay, and was she a big influence in your journey with textiles?
Quite a bit. She was more of like a smaller project kind of creator, but it definitely was where I started and got an interest in making clothes.
Okay, and what made you decide, do you ever use new textiles in your work, or do you work exclusively with upcycled textiles?
I do use new materials in a lot of the custom order projects that I make, like the suits and things like that, that there's really not appropriate, accessible things to upcycle with. But even in a lot of those like higher end items, I'll put a little bit here and there that is upcycled. It doesn't necessarily show, but it's there.
Okay, so who are your customers mostly?
Musicians, generally country musicians, and a lot of bluegrass musicians as well.
It must be very exciting to see your clothing on stage.
Oh, it's very fun. It never gets old.
And does any of your clothing appear on any album covers or anything like that?
Yes, there have been a few. The most recent one was the Paul Ramblin' Boys, who are a bluegrass band that got the IBMA Emerging Artist of the Year award last year, and then they were Grammy nominated this year. And they're all wearing suits that I made on their album.
Wow, that's so exciting. So in a way, you're a bit of a celebrity in your own right.
Behind the scenes, but
Seamstress.
I get to work with a lot.
That's wonderful. And what do you feel is the ideology behind working with upcycled textiles?
Well, I've always been on board with create as little waste as possible. That's kind of the most obvious one. And while I appreciate that, I also like the other elements of upcycling, just for the uniqueness and kind of diversity and range of fabrics and things that you can find that aren't readily available anymore.
And what does an average day at work look like for you?
Well, I have my store and my workspace in the same space. So I come in and I'm, kind of open these days, but generally, open up the door and people wander in and out as I'm sitting here making stuff, staying busy all day long.
And can people actually come into the store and see you working?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Where's your store?
I'm in Nashville, in the East Nashville neighborhood.
Okay. And what do you feel your role is in the story about upcycled textiles, and why?
So I really like to kind of elevate upcycling beyond craft and kind of work it into I wouldn't say that I'm mainstream, because I'm not mainstream fashion. It's a very niche thing. But at the same time, even within the niche, upcycling's not a normal thing. So I like to make things that are unique and one of a kind and marketable, and also have upcycle elements.
And how did you get into your specific niche? This is quite interesting.
I grew up with horses as a kid, and some of that was, this kind of fashion we wore for things. And then kind of came back around to it through the music that I like, the music that I listen to.
That's lovely. So it connects back to really who you are. That's wonderful. And what would you most like to see change in the current system around textiles?
Well, I think obviously we all know that fast fashion is the biggest problem. I think when it comes to waste in the textile industry, and just cranking out things that are disposable and trash, but aren't ever going to go away because of the materials they're made out of, and everything.
Yeah.
It's trash that will be here forever, and that's not the way to do things.
Yes. Now, I know I'm going a little bit off our script here, but I speak to a lot of maker sellers who say that they have trouble charging the prices they need to make their businesses sustainable. Is that something you face at all?
I would say at times in the past it's been an issue, but once you've been doing it for a long time and you build up your customer base and all that, it kind of naturally goes away as you get a reputation and people are more willing to pay what things are worth.
So it's really about nurturing the right kind of customer base.
Absolutely. Like, a lot of the things that I make are too expensive for a lot of people, but then there's the people that see the value in it and are like, wow, that's priced totally reasonably. So you have to target the people who see your things as priced reasonably for what they are, not everybody. And that's fine. We don't have to sell to everybody.
Yes, that's great insight. Thank you. And what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about starting out selling their own upcycled textile products?
I think that you really have to evaluate what you're making and the market for it apart from it being upcycled, because you will have much greater success if you're making something that you can market to a larger audience than just people who are looking for upcycled goods. Like, even on things that I make that are 100% upcycled, I don't necessarily market them that way, because it's kind of been proven that most people, unfortunately, don't care a whole lot about that. So really, I think to be successful, you just kind of do your thing that people want and that you like doing, and then put in that upcycling. But it doesn't have to be, line number one on what you're doing, even if it is the most important thing to you.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying be who you are and just be natural about it, and use the upcycled resources because you care about it, and don't try to use that as a selling point for customers.
Yes, I've definitely found greater success with that not being a main marketing point, that it's just kind of in the background.
Do you feel that it can actually be a barrier to entry for people, that if people think you're using upcycled resources, they're not as interested in buying?
I think there's definitely a portion of people out there that do feel that way, that kind of see it as an arts and crafts lower art form, and it's not. But you know, a lot of times I'll say that it's made with vintage fabrics versus saying that it's upcycled or whatever, just because there's more value attached to that term, especially in my city, where that's a very vintage friendly town.
These are some very valuable insights. Thank you for sharing them with us. And what do you enjoy most about being a part of the upcycled textile movement?
Well, as a part of the movement, I love saving the waste materials and the interesting finds and kind of bringing them to life again and all that. Like it's wonderful when especially if I find a really wild vintage textile that I am just in love with and get to make something that is just out of this world. Like that's the best feeling ever.
I can hear you really love that part of the work. It's like treasure hunting, isn't it?
It is. It's so, man, it's a rush when you find the good stuff.
And what's your favorite find that you've ever made?
I guess probably maybe 6 months or so ago, I found a mid-century embroidered satin bedspread, probably Korean embroidery. And actually the shirt that I'm wearing has parts of it on here, but it had this giant peacock on it, and it was just, I made it into this incredibly loud, beautiful, wonderful shirt, and then have used little pieces of it on all sorts of other things too. It was just, I would love to find more of those. They're not out there.
It sounds like you found a real treasure. And what do you enjoy most about being a part of the Upcycled Cloth Collective?
I really like being able to connect with people who do see the value and the upcycle aspect of it, as opposed to the people who I sell to mostly that kind of tolerate it. So it's nice to join in with people who really care about that when nobody else does.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I love having you all of you in the group. It's very special to me too. You're like a family to me. How do you think we could get more people to start buying upcycled textile products?
Well, I think that we can really take lessons from the mainstream on this, and as silly as some of the methods are with, you know, celebrity culture and getting people who are somebody to wear your things, it really expands the market and the eyes on things. And you know, it's really, I think, key to really expanding things is getting people to accept it without even realizing they're accepting it. You know, it's just to make things that stand on their own and have value and that people want, but that are also still upcycled.
We have had very interesting conversations behind the scenes on the admin team. Sometimes it's quite tricky when somebody makes something that's so high quality, it almost looks mass produced. So there's almost like a push-pull between, because people assume that if it's upcycled, it's going to look homemade. And then you get some people who are making really high quality things. And then there's this conversation, is it really made from upcycled resources or not? So it's a very interesting tension that seems to exist there between making it high quality and people still understanding that you can make high quality things out of upcycled resources. All right.
Yes.
It looks like we've come to the end of the list of questions that I had prepared for you. Where can we find your upcycled textile products if we want to buy them. I will be including it in your links, but in the links on this video. But maybe you'd just like to talk about your sites, your pages that we can go and visit.
Sure. Yeah, I have elliemonster.com, which has links to all my social media and my Etsy store as well. And then, of course, my store in Nashville. Everything's available here for anybody who's local.
Okay, and are you on Instagram?
I am. I'm Ellie Monster with an S. So Ellie Monsters there.
Okay, I'm definitely going to connect with you there. Thank you so much for giving of your time to do this interview. I appreciate it so very much. It was wonderful meeting you in person. And thank you for spending time in our group.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yay.